Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video, and I'm here with yet another, I feel like this is like the fourth or fifth one on my channel, RWS comparisons. I feel like I can almost, I'm like 85% sure these are the three RWS decks for me. I mean, should I come upon some vintage RWS deck somehow at a rummage sale or whatever, I'm not saying I'm not going to buy it, but I feel like this is the lineup that I like to have. Personally, I like to have one that I can easily replace because I do like to give away RWS decks whenever like friends and family members that know I'm into tarot start talking to me about how they have started becoming interested in tarot. I want to have one on hand that I can give to them. So I will always have like a more modern RWS, and this one I think is my favorite so far. I'll get into the reasons why here in a minute. But I just recently, let's see, this was like 2 years ago on the channel. I was doing another one of these unfair comparisons with different RWS decks. And I'm just saying RWS as a shortcut for, the traditional Pamela Coleman Smith / A.E. Waite deck. So I said on this channel 2 years ago, I would really like to have a pink Ankh deck. And I finally have one. I had one like 3 years ago, but it was like a more recent Carol Press edition that was not very good quality. But I now have one that I believe is probably from the third edition. It has a little white book, but look how cool that typeface is. I love it. It doesn't have any information. It just says printed in the US. No information about when it was made. I believe we're looking at this deck. Okay, so this deck would have been somewhere around 1963, 65-ish, I think. So in this video, I kind of want to share with you a little bit of the knowledge that I have acquired, accumulated. I've been researching this deck, not just the pink Ankh, but I just mean like the RWS deck. I've been kind of researching it. First of all, University Press was the first, this pink Ankh deck was the first one to be released in a tuck box, was the first one to come out with a little white book, was the first publisher to start putting like the card, an image of the card on the box. So the history of RWS. Okay. I'm re-recording this video even, and I'm already like all over the place. So, Writer, this one says Writer on it, but at this point it's US Games. The Writer Company put out this deck in 1909. And it was in, the way that tarot decks were sold at the time, that was like the first one, right? That was like actually sold to the masses. It was in like a leatherette slipcover type box. It had like a hardbound book that came with it. Don't quote me on these details because I've read this stuff from many different sources and I'm not a historian, but I think this is the general idea. So it came in like a leatherette slipcase, came with a hardbound book. I believe that was the first edition that came out in 1909/1910. And then it just sort of like World War II happened, and the original plates for the artwork were destroyed. And next is University Press. So they released this deck in 1960. At that point, they were also doing like the slipcover case situation. And then their second and third editions were tuck boxes. So we can credit University Press for first tuck box ever. And I think you can see, like, this is a vintage yellow box from 86 to 89 is my version. Sorry, I can't adjust this tripod easily, the one that I'm using today. So it's a weird angle. But as you can see, US Games really fucking plagiarized university books. I mean, they really stole a lot from them. Which, fine, but I just think that's interesting to note. Okay, so there's that bit of information. This is just a current Los Scarabeo Tarot original 1909. Can we just say it is so annoying, the names that they have for all these different RWS decks. Like, there's the original A.E. Waite, there's this Tarot original 1909, there's Pamela Coleman Smith's RWS Tarot, there's Smith Waite, there's just so many different fucking names for what is essentially the same goddamn artwork, right? And it just depends on like which and I mean, I'm into all the like nuances of the different versions and all of that shit. I've had a lot of these different decks over the years, but it's confusing. All of it is confusing. Okay, another thing that I just recently learned. Okay, so we're going to be comparing today the Pink Ankh University Press. I believe this would be the 3rd edition. Although from how I understand it, the cards for like the first 3 editions were printed all at the same time. It was just the boxes that changed. And then, so I'm comparing that to a vintage Plaidback US Games yellow box from, mine would have been between 1986 and 1989. And I know that thanks to Brant at Moonbaby, his awesome yellow box video that he has that helps you figure out when your yellow box was released. And then this Tarot Original 1909 that you can get on Amazon right now for $20. Okay, so here's the other big thing that I learned doing all of this nerding out on the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot in the last couple of weeks that I've done. And this is going to be like, duh, to a lot of you. But I didn't understand it, so I'm sharing this information for those of you that might be in the same boat that I was in. Pam A versus Pam B. A lot of us have heard this term. I thought it had something to do with printing quality or editions or something like that. I did not understand that. And you can see I have an older video where I'm comparing these 2 decks to each other. It's from like a year or 2 ago. And I was like, why does the artwork look different? I don't understand. And lovely Brant at Moonbaby Tarot commented on my video and said, well, the yellow box is Pam A and the Tarot Original 1909 is Pam B. And I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't understand what that meant because I'm kind of daft. So here's what it means in case you're as daft as I was, from what I understand. So like I said before, in World War II, the original plates for Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork were destroyed. And so like the only ones that have, and now US Games has the copyright, I believe US Games now has the copyright on Pam A. So Pam A is Pamela Coleman Smith's original artwork. And I don't really understand the difference between Pam B, Pam C, Pam D, but I believe, at least I think Pam B, so all I'm really saying is Pam A versus Pam B, because I don't really know anything about C and D. But Pam B is someone, and I believe it's like, to me it looks like a bunch of different artists actually throughout this deck recreated her artwork as closely as they could. So if you look very closely, like you can compare the bags to each other, compare their faces, just pick a little piece of the artwork and compare it to the other, and you can see that this is actually different line work because someone recreated her art. So that's what a Pan B is. So Los Scarabeo uses Pan B because they don't have the copyright on Pan A. In many cases, I actually prefer the artwork of the Pan B. I know, totally sacrilegious words, right? Not all the time. And it's close enough. I mean, they got good artists to recreate this. I mean, you can barely tell that this is different line work. You have to really look closely to see that, right? So, it's interesting because I just gave my Centennial to a friend, which is why I replaced it with this. And this is so much more shuffleable. And the coloring is similar to the Centennial. And I actually kind of prefer this to the Centennial. I like the backs better. It's so much easier to shuffle. It's roughly the same thickness as this plaid back from the 80s. Whereas like with the Centennial, it's like half an inch thicker than this. So it's just very hard to shuffle. And I still prefer the Centennial as far as the coloring. I think the Centennial coloring is the best of any RWS deck. But this one comes pretty close. A lot of babbling before I even get started flipping the cards over. But so both of these are Pam A and this one's Pam B. So I have that information. And the pink Ankh deck, I think, deserves more respect than it gets. Because they like paved the way for everything that US Games became. And they were putting this deck out starting in 1960 when, US Games didn't revive. I guess they bought out Ryder or something. I don't know. But they didn't start releasing this deck until 1971 or 72. Copyright on every card says 1971. So they didn't start putting this deck out until 1971. So I don't know. I just think University Press should get more credit. I mean, the printing quality is not the best, but I think that's just how it was back then. I mean, they essentially made this tarot deck affordable and accessible. And that is pretty fucking priceless. If it weren't for University Press, we probably wouldn't have tarot the way that we know it today. Maybe US Games / Ryder or whatever would have still brought tarot back at some point. But it wouldn't be what it is. It wouldn't be what it is today without University Press. So I am very happy to finally have a really great copy, and I have an awesome story attached. I mean, it's just I bought it on eBay, but the guy that I bought it from was extremely kind. He answered all of my questions and then some. He's very conscientious and like thoughtful, and like the way that he packaged it when he sent it to me was just really sweet, and he sent me a little card, and it was a really sweet interaction. So like these two decks are forever, absolutely. At some point I'll probably give this one away because that's what I do, and then I'll replace it. But I'm feeling really happy with this particular lineup of my RWS decks. And I'm resisting that thing that I do where, some of y'all know this about me, I feel guilty when I have multiple copies of a deck. I'm resisting it right now. I'm allowing myself to have these two beautiful vintage copies plus one extra. I will probably be using this one the most. I think I'm just going to keep it out in my tarot room. Just, stack of cards in the corner somewhere. This is just going to be probably out at all times. And it's been in my hands constantly for like the last week since I bought it. And I'm enjoying it a lot. A lot. And these two will still get used. Like, I'm not a person that doesn't use my vintage decks. I will be using them. Yeah, okay, so now that I've babbled for 15 full minutes, let's start flipping cards, shall we? I hope that you can see this okay, because I can't really... I'm using like a tabletop tripod today because it's easier with this particular setup, but it can't tilt down anymore than this. So I hope this is okay as far as like being able to compare the artwork. And then I guess I can just start flipping them over, right? So it's interesting that like most decks that come out now, such as the Centennial and the Centennial, the original AE weight or whatever it's called, this one, Tarot Original 1909. It's interesting that like the way that they interpret the color, the vintage 1909 color, is in a way that it's never been. Because even when you see someone that actually has like one of the editions of the Rider-Waite-Smith from like 1909, the coloring is more similar to this, you know? And these colorizations aren't like vastly different when you're looking at these, but yeah, it's just interesting that like, you know, the interpretation of vintage colorization is really not the way that it was back then, you know? All the like, you know, brown tones and all of that. And you can definitely see that these are different artworks by looking at the faces most of the time. So you can see in this Pam A on the left, the original artwork, it's a different face. One thing that I really like about this Tarot Original 1909 is the way that they have employed texture for color, which is a technique that was used, you know, back in the 1909 times. Like, all the skin tones are just a collection of red dots. And I really like that, like, you know, the different textures used in this deck here. The Tarot Original 1909. Such a stupid name. But... and you get that with these other two vintage decks as well. You get a bit of that texture situation. But like this little like platform that the Hierophant is on looks like gingham or something, which I love. I love all these different textures. This is one of the ways that you can tell a Pam A from a Pam B. If you look at the angel's face, you will see in the two on the left, the Pam A's, the angel's eyes are closed and the angel's eyes are open on the Pam B on the right. Again, like, you know, you have to really nitpick to be able to see that, to see the differences. So it really doesn't matter. Ultimately, I mean, it's fun. The little details are fun, but like, the thing that I'm saying doesn't matter is like, you don't have to prioritize the Pam A as superior, because is it really superior? No, it's not. If people didn't slap copyrights on things that, you know, I mean, Pam A is the only, Pamela Coleman Smith is really the only one that should be having a copyright on this shit, right? One thing I really like about the pink Ankh deck is that you can see that this wreath is around the neck of the lion, and whether that's something that was originally intended or not, I mean, you really can't tell that in the line work, you know? In the line work, you're not seeing... well, you kind of can. but not really. So that may not have been the intention of Pamela Coleman Smith, to have the wreath going around the lion's neck as well. But I like that. I like the idea of that. I might even color that in on this deck over here. I like that we get just like vastly different colors in the background with all three of these hermits. The purple tone on this, it's one of those purple tones that does not show up correctly on camera, because it's much more of a reddish purple to me in person than it's looking on the screen. It's a much more pleasing to my eye purple in person. There's a lot of like little printing errors and issues in this pink Ankh deck. And it's just, if you look up close, it's kind of muddy. The colors, it's not super colored in, you know, super quality colored in. This particular death on the pink Ankh deck all the way to the left, not green at all, but gray. I'm used to the death skeleton being kind of green, which you do see in these other two on the right. I generally prefer the lettering in the Pam B because it's bolder and bigger and usually slightly less sloppy. In a lot of cases, I prefer the faces. In a lot of cases, I prefer the faces in the Pam B. A lot of the time, the faces in the Pam B look kinder to me. I don't know why I'm doing it in the way that I'm doing it, but I hope you guys can see clearly. Of course, I mean, this deck has been unfairly compared in so many different ways. It's just so interesting how the skin tones are done. Like on this pink Ankh deck, it's like the background of the skin tone is like yellow, and then it's got red sort of lines, little tiny lines to make the more peach tone skin. In this plaid back, it's just one solid color. And then in this Tarot 1909, it's very easy to see. It's just a collection of red dots that make her skin tone. Which is just so, all the different textures. I know I said that before, but all the different textures in this Tarot 1909. I would recommend this deck. And I feel like probably people shit on it because it's Pam B. I mean, I don't know if people actually shit on it, but I would assume. I would assume people are like, nope, that's not her original artwork. It's not good. But yeah, it is good. They got professional artists, obviously, to recreate this artwork as closely as possible. And they did a great job. Whoever they were. They never got any credit for it, but they did a great job. Okay, this is the other card that people always point out. This is how you tell the difference between a Pam A and a Pam B. On the Sun card especially. Like this little squiggly right here is Pam A. And then the squiggly is taken out on Pam B. Also, the like little seeds of the sunflowers, they like forgot to color in the seeds on the fourth sunflower on the Pam B. And that's the other way you can tell. My God, we're going to be here forever if I like do a close-up of every single card. You get the idea. I may not even go through this whole deck. Or I may just stop pulling them up close to show them. I think the new way that we should tell the difference between the Pam A and the Pam B is the boobs on the world card. They are a little bit more pendulous in the Pam B. And she's got a little more hip in the Pam B as well, which I like. But the hair, it's interesting how the hair has been done differently, because it's like in this pink Ankh deck, it looks like the hair is colored purple. It's just like mixed up with the like sash situation. And in this Pam B, all the way to the right, the hair is just like not even colored in. It's just some scragglies in the background. So then it calls into question, is it supposed to be hair or is it supposed to be this sash thing? I don't know. Whatever. Like, it should be mentioned that, like, when you're looking at these decks next to each other, you're going to see these little differences. But when you're using them in regular, everyday tarot use practices, you're just seeing the RWS art. You're just seeing it and you're just enjoying it, and it's easy to understand because we all know this deck intimately. Well, most of us, I guess. Oh my God, on screen, this looks blue, but it's not. In person, it's this really rich, pretty purple. And it looks blue on my viewfinder. Maybe it'll look better once I actually get it on my computer screen, but I don't know. Maybe the way that you're seeing it is slightly better than the way I'm seeing it. Different color backgrounds in each of these. See what I mean by like how sloppy the like printing is? You can particularly tell in this card because like these little sprigs on the wands are just like so outside the lines. And that is not the case with these other two. Oh my God, this one's funny. Look at their little zombie faces. And that is not the case in the other decks. I feel like they just forgot to add the skin tone to these people, but hey, I like it. They look like, this looks like a Day of the Dead celebration to me. So I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm just gonna start flipping a little bit faster now. You get the idea. I just wanted to share some of my tarot knowledge that I've gained through mostly through trying to research this pink Ankh deck whenever I was thinking about buying it. And I'm glad I did. There are a lot of like little issues though, like this little, because it was, you know, printed with methods that are not done today, you know? As far as like quality of the imagery and the printing technique and all of that, like Plaid back wins. As far as ease of shuffling, they're all easy to shuffle. The pink Ankh is so thin and flexible. It has a core though, I think. I think it has a core because it has like a weight to it. And not all pink Ankh decks created equal. So if you have a more recent one, that is some shitty ass cardstock. But this one is not shitty. It's substantial. But it's also very, very, like, it's so easy to shuffle that I'm not used to it yet, how easy it is to shuffle. So the cards kind of clump up a little bit whenever I shuffle it. But I've only had it for like 3 days at this point. The pages in, okay, this is not a good example. So I'll save the sentence for when it is, no, the knights. The knights. That's what I was thinking. The knights in the Pan B, to me, look a little bit more feminine. And I like that. Not in every case, but just like here, the coloring in particular, like, can you see there's a little bit of blue on the eyelid space of this Knight of Wands on the Pan B all the way to the right, which makes me think that this knight is wearing makeup. And I just get some sort of Joan of Arc vibes, and I'm okay with that. Oh, this one's sad. There's a little printing error on the face of my black cat on the Queen of Wands, which is sad. It's interesting too, like every Pan B I've seen, the coloring is, she is blonde in the Pan B of every coloring that I've seen of that deck. Whereas she's a redhead in the other. And they've definitely like beautified her face, right? Like she is more traditionally beautiful in the Pan B artwork. I need to go faster because I want to upload this video at higher quality so you guys can see all these details I'm trying to point out, but that means I need to make this video shorter because small town internet problems. This is one exception to the, like, in general, I like the faces in the Pan B better. Oh my god, look how muddy this face is in the pink Ankh. Like, this card in particular, like, the color is not printed well. But doesn't she kind of look angry in the Pan B? A little angry. She looks a little angry. The guy doesn't look angry. He looks okay. Again, this is purple, but it's showing up as blue on my screen. I'm going to try to stop pointing that out every time, but I think whoever did the art for this particular, I think they improved upon the face of this woman, but they did not improve upon the face of the woman on the right. She looks a little squished. So I like to take the face of this one on the Pan A and the face of this one on the Pan B. But again, like, I'm pointing out all these stupid little nitpicky details, differences between these, but, you know, in regular everyday use, you're not going to be thinking about these things. This one, the green. Look at that, like, outline of green. I don't know. Is that an accident or not? It's on the trees, too. I don't know. I am curious to know. This is something that I do not have the information for yet, but it might be something that I will choose to research. Like, what are the printing techniques? You know, like, did they have to print, like, one color at a time back in the 60s whenever this deck was printed? Is that why, like, you know, some of the register is off, like, for the colors? It can easily be off register because, you know, I'm sure they were like mass printing these. They probably at least printed 1,000 copies in this first sort of printing that they ended up putting out in different box situations. But, like, you see how the register's off with the border here? Like, there's a little strip of white at the top. So I'm thinking they had to send the sheets through several times for each color, right? Maybe? I don't know. I'd love to know that. I do not know. And how much had those printing techniques changed by the 80s whenever this one was printed versus now everything's just, you know, digital stuff. Digital stuff. Look at this guy's face. All rosy cheeks and rosy nose. This one, like looking closely at the Page of Cups is not the best idea for me personally. Like, you can see like this little background area right here is not colored in on the pink Ankh. Also not really colored in on this Tarot 1909. Also, this little chunk right here, that one might be actually the same color as the background. But then it's like, the belt isn't colored in. This little chunk right here isn't colored in. Why? Why is it not? I don't understand. I don't know. We're not getting that same sort of like I'm interpreting a more feminine face in this night. But with the page, yes. This looks like a more feminine face in this page versus this page. To me. And it's just, this is the way that I'm enjoying interpreting it. So that's why I'm pointing it out, just in case you enjoy interpreting it that way as well. I love the, like, I just love all the, like, mossy green tones in the King of Cups in general. This one, I mean, it's very 60s though, right? I mean, look at those two colors together, that green and that blue, so 60s. All right, really gonna try to speed up. Oh, wait, hold on. This little pile of rocks is different. These are both Pam A, I thought, but that pile of rocks is different. Why? Ooh, I wonder if there's other differences. So, I mean, maybe with the pink Ankh, we're looking at like a Pam C or a D, and I may not, just because I don't know what I'm looking at. Maybe that's the case. Interesting. I'm really like nerding out on details lately with this artwork. And it's like, you know, I've never been particularly drawn to this artwork. In fact, I avoided this artwork for the first, 20 years that my first tarot deck, I probably got 97 or 98, most likely, maybe 99 at the latest. And then I acquired my first RWS tarot deck in 2019. So fully in the first 20 years of me having tarot decks in my life, I avoided this artwork. I avoided this deck. And now I have, but it was the thing that unlocked tarot for me. I mean, there were other factors too. I've told my sort of tarot origin story several times. Another little printing flaw at the bottom here, plus this little dot of yellow. It's special though. Vintage decks are special because they, I don't know, it's just something about the fact that all of the little flaws on this deck, they are specific to this deck, Whereas if there's like a flaw in the printing process of like a deck made now, it's going to be on like every deck, sometimes every card, you know? This one's like his little thing flying behind his helmet is hot pink, which is fun. Which is so fun. It's really so fun. Is this particular knight like more feminine? No. Is this particular page more feminine? No. It's just on a few of them that I'm interpreting it that way. Okay, why? You know what? I feel like I just have to point it out. No, I can't. I can't point it out. I can't, because then you can't unsee it. So I won't. Okay. All right. Another thing, I mean, I don't know if this is specific to every Pam A versus Pam B, but with the Pam A, like the outline in the aces, the like little spiky white stuff going on, outlining the hand, is just much more subtle in the Pam B. And different. Anyway, the point of all of this is to share with you guys a little bit of the RWS knowledge that I've gained in the last few days, which is very easy to find, and most of you probably already know it all. Or you don't care. Also fine. But it's also just like, there's good shit out there now, and there was good shit out there back in the 60s. It's, you know, whatever version of this deck you have, and you likely do, if you're watching this video, is just fine. It's just fine. Are there any shitty ones out there? I don't know. I kind of like the guy's face in the Pam B better. I don't know, he just looks a little kinder to me. And also he looks a little thicker, which I'm here for. Same here, like, look at this guy's face on the Pam B on the right. He just looks sweeter. I don't know. Whoever they got to redo Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork in the Pam B, 9 times out of 10, I enjoy the faces more. This one, they're fine. It's fine either way. That's weird shading choices on this one, because it just, from far away, it just, the right half of her face being totally in shadow just kind of looks weird to me. But again, you're not going to be thinking about that when you're using these decks. You're not going to be thinking about it, I promise. All of these little fucking details. Just looking at faces right now. This one looks like an older page to me. It looks like he has, I mean, I think it's just the way that the shadow is done. It almost looks like he has like facial hair in this Pam B. Oh, this is one of the ones. I love the face on the Pam B of this particular knight. And the coloring too. Of like giving him sort of like a blushy cheek. It looks kind of like tattoo art. The way that it's done with, like, you know, the little collection of red dots, which is the way that the way that all the skin tones are done in this deck. But they also did the glove like that. They did it like the skin tone. It's like, do you know that this is supposed to be a glove? Anyway. It's too bad that whoever did the artwork on the Pam B, I mean, they did actually make the bunny a little bit easier to see. But, like, it was years before I even knew there was a bunny in this fucking card. Maybe not years, but It was a while before I knew there was a bunny in this card. And again, something about the face. Like, she looks kinder to me in the Pan B. I don't know. Maybe the artist themselves that did the Pan B artwork, if there is only one. But I think there's more than one because, like, there's differences in the line work throughout. So I think it's more than one artist, but maybe that person just was a kinder person, so they drew kinder faces. I mean, we don't know what kind of person Pamela Coleman Smith was. Did she deserve credit for her work? Absolutely. But do we know that she was a good person? No, we don't. We don't know shit. Okay, that is my 45-minute long RWS comparison. Yeah, between Pink Ankh from early to mid 60s, University Press, Writer Tarot, US Games from my particular copies 86 to 89, and then the one you can get right now for $20, Tarot Original 1909. All great choices. If you're going by price, get this one. Although, as far as I know, you can still find like a vintage yellow box on eBay for, I got this one for $30. It was like 4 years ago at this point. There's so many of these, it's hard to tell what you're getting. But I'll try to remember to put a link to Brant's Moonbaby, his like yellow box guide video that he made a couple years ago that is so good, so informative. If you're looking for a vintage yellow box that doesn't cost too much money, the era that I got mine is really good. So just in case you are interested, let me show you what you would be looking for if you were looking for one like mine that's not too expensive. It still has the copyright on it, but the cardstock is amazing. And there's like no finish on these cards. It's very shuffleable. It's a joy to shuffle. What you'd be looking for is like no website on the back. Also mine in particular is the 26th printing. And the way that you can tell this, just in case you don't know, there's always like these little line of numbers on the little white book, and the number that's all the way to the right is the printing that you have. So mine is the 26th printing of this version of this deck, and I just wrote it on here just because I keep forgetting because I'll find out, oh yeah, mine must have been printed between 1986 and 89, and this is why. And then I'll forget. So, anyway. So, there you go. I don't know how to stop talking, so I'm just going to stop. Bye.